How's it going, everyone? I'm Keegs, and I am here today with Ben once again. Say hi, Ben.
Hello.
And we are going to be talking episode 7 of Ahsoka. Now, I thought overall I did really like this episode. I feel like coming off of the last two episodes, I think that were so incredible. This one didn't feel as grand, but I still liked it a lot. So it's not really a dig at this episode, but really hyping up the previous two episodes that we had. What do you think?
No, I agree. I really enjoyed it, and I felt like it was really fluid and well shot and everything, and everything was good about it. It was just like the previous two were so good that
You like really
it was
noticed?
hard to compete. Yeah. So like it wasn't like that anything particularly was bad. I know like this episode's sort of been a little bit more mixed, like episode 3 was, which I find very confusing. But we can get into that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, so starting off, we actually started off with Hera. I didn't actually think we were going to get to see her. Well, I think I said the last episode we would see her. But so episode 7, we see her. She's at the council getting court-martialed, and they're trying to kind of strip her of her rank because she is not providing any real solid evidence that Thrawn is actually coming back and is going to be a threat to the Republic. And the one senator is just really grilling her.
Yeah, and well, I was thinking like as I was watching it, I'm like, man, this guy's like acting his ass off right now.
I mean, this guy's got to be an Imperial loyalist, right? Like,
Yeah, he's
there's no way
sketchy.
he's not.
I do know that like he is in Star Wars Resistance because his son is one of the main characters in the show.
Oh, interesting.
And I'm not sure the nature of this guy's story, but I will say it is pretty suspect that he was not on Hosnian Prime when it blew up. And I think he is the senator of Hosnian Prime. So
Huh, wow, that is definitely interesting. I think that makes a lot of sense because, I mean, why else would you object to entering new evidence in to the court when C-3PO shows up and is like, hey, I've got a message from Leia, and he's like, absolutely not, we can't listen to this. Like, what? Why, if you don't have some ulterior motive, would you not want the evidence to be heard? I mean, maybe he just thought that they were trying to get one over on the New Republic, which is definitely possible, and they were doing that, I guess, but it seems like a little suspect to me that he would be so adamant about not entering that evidence.
no, I totally agree with that. It's very like if you wanted the truth, there shouldn't be any problem with that. Like, but he was lawyering it up and definitely trying to throw under the bus. Something I did really appreciate about this scene, aside from it looking good, and it was cool to see Coruscant again. Always happy to see Coruscant.
Yeah, love
Is
Coruscant.
that they did actually like she had all the evidence that we were discussing a few episodes back of like why didn't she bring that up? She had already presented all that information to them. It was in the report.
Yeah, true.
They just didn't care, which is fine. I remember we were a little confused as to why she wouldn't bring those things up, but she did. It was
Yeah.
in the report. They just don't care, which I was like, okay, thank God.
Yeah, so I don't know, whatever. She gets out of it because they were able to enter the log, and Leia vouches for Hera, saying like, oh yeah, I definitely sent her on that mission. She was under my official orders or whatever, and Leia's super high up in the political chain at this time. Anyway, Mon Mothma then goes over to Hera and is like, yo, I know this is all BS, but really how real is the threat? And Hera's obviously pretty adamant that the threat is real.
Very, very real. And I do appreciate that Mon Mothma is like, yeah, like I know like that whole thing was for show, but like what's really going on?
Yeah.
And I really appreciate
it. Really
that.
speaks to Mon Mothma as a character.
Yeah, she's been doing a really good job, and it's been cool to see her really like develop a character because we got a little bit of her in the original trilogy, but not much.
Yeah.
Cool to see that, and I'm glad that they used the same actress from Revenge of the Sith, even though she basically didn't get to be in it. So yeah, I really like her. I'm always happy to see her, and I'm glad that we got a little bit more Hera because I suspect we're not going to get much of her next episode.
I would suspect that as well. But moving further into the episode here, we go to the next scene, which is awesome. It's a scene of Ahsoka training in the same room that Sabine was, and she's listening to the hollows of Anakin, who previously gave those to her to essentially train with, and she said that this was the last one that he ever sent her. And of course it was just great hearing Anakin's voice again and instructing her. It was just a really good scene all around, and you could tell how much she actually misses Anakin in this scene.
Yeah, she does, and it was nice because I think at least a little bit of a concern I had was that she'd have that one experience and then suddenly everything was okay. And it doesn't seem to be the case. Seems like the main weight has been lifted, but there's still a little bit of like sadness when she was like, he was a good master, and then Huyang's like, that's surprising, but really nice that he did all of that. But the way that she spoke, there was some sadness there, not like deep.
She felt almost more at peace with it.
Yeah, she felt more at peace, but she still felt like it bothered her, but in a different way now, more in like I miss him sort of way, rather than like
I hate him or I'm
really upset with him. Or like I'm scared of myself or something.
Yeah.
So that scene was really nice, and the message you recorded for her was really nice, and I like that we continue to get a development of Anakin even this long after his primary role. I think it's really cute that he recorded a bunch of messages for her, and if that's the last one, and he was still wearing the Clone Wars armor, that was probably still in the first year of the war, so it just goes to show like how fast that thing ramped up and how little time they had.
And that's when he did probably the bulk of her training there, and then she became more of an actual partner, obviously still his apprentice, but more of a partner than someone he was actually teaching just how to survive.
Yeah, and so the message itself was really nice. It was cool to get the name drops, but I think the part that hit me was, I think it was been in the trailer for a while now, or one of them was the "I know you can do this."
Yeah,
Ahsoka. That was, I thought that would be a Force Ghost line. I was wrong, but either way, it was still really cool to get that.
Yeah, it definitely was. So, and if this is the last we get of Anakin this season, then I'm happy with everything we got. Of course, I'd always want more, but I feel pretty satisfied with what we have gotten so far.
Yeah, I agree.
Then they come out of hyperspace, though, and coming out of hyperspace, they just come immediately into essentially a war zone where there's a bunch of Imperial mines that have been laid, and the whales are just getting berated by these things, and then they just dip out because they're like, nope, not doing this. We are.
Yeah, I'm glad they didn't get hurt, but I also like that scene was so good because it showed immediately how tactical Thrawn is.
Yeah,
knew she was coming and prepared for it, and so that was really cool. I thought I was worried for the whales, but then they flew away.
Yeah,
which I also think was telling us something
that they're not getting back on the whales.
Yeah, they're not using the whales to get back. As some people said, oh well, they flew away so they could come back, and I'm like, no. Usually in like screenwriting, when they make a point of showing someone's left, it's to say like
they're not coming back.
They're not coming back, or there's another solution, or something's going to dramatically change before they get back. In the case of the whales, since they're not really like people in the sense of dialogue in the story, I think that their plot device is gone now.
Yeah,
so
I would agree.
We'll see how that goes. I thought the ensuing like space chase was pretty awesome.
Yeah, and then we see Thrawn. He learns who Ahsoka is and that her master was Anakin, and immediately he's someone who doesn't really have a lot of facial emotions, he doesn't emote very often, but as soon as he saw that, his eyebrows went up and he was just like, oh, okay, we need to reevaluate our assessment of the situation. And he calls his guys back and says, let's look at this another angle.
Yeah, it was really cool because Thrawn's pretty much always cool as a cucumber, and that one moment, he didn't like let the facade completely slip. You could tell that like he was a little bit concerned shook there, especially with the way he spoke about how Anakin was dangerous and unpredictable.
The way he paused for unpredictable was amazing.
Yeah, so he's like, okay, we need to actually prepare for this, and that was really cool because for those that don't know, the reason that he knows that is because they linked up for a mission in the Clone Wars, and then later as Darth Vader under the Imperial rule. And yeah, well,
it's heavily really implied that Thrawn did know by the end that, or heavily suspected that Anakin was Darth Vader.
Yeah, I mean, it was all but stated that he knew, and that was really cool. So it's cool to get a book nod directly like that, and it's logical that it would feed into the story. Now, Padme did mention Ahsoka's name in that book to Thrawn as well, but I feel like it's not reasonable to expect somebody to remember the details of every single conversation they've had in the past, like, especially since that was like 30 years ago.
Yeah.
So I think it's fine that he didn't recognize immediately the name Ahsoka.
That's interesting.
But he would remember the mission he went on with Anakin Skywalker and then Darth Vader. That was probably pretty.
Yeah, put it all together there immediately.
Crazy experience. Yeah, I don't mind that he didn't recognize Ahsoka's name. I think it's reasonable. I don't
remember that from the book of Padme mentioning.
I didn't remember either, and then I looked it up and I saw people talking about it. Yeah, Padme was telling him about some sort of tactical maneuver that Ahsoka came up with.
Huh. That's really interesting.
But I think it's reasonable that he wouldn't remember that, but he would remember going on a mission with Anakin, maybe like the general.
Yeah, it's been a really long time since that, right? It's been like, what, 40 years probably? Close to?
30, because it would have been, there's 19 years between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope, and that mission would have taken place maybe a couple years before that, so like 30-ish, and then I think we're around like 9 years after the Battle of Yavin in the current timeline. So
Yeah.
yeah, like around 30-ish. And Morgan Elsbeth is like, "Are you sure you want to do that? Like this
She's
and that."
questioned
And
him a
this,
couple times now. She's like, I feel like we kind of have her on the ropes here, and someone who has worked with not only the Jedi but also with Anakin and, I mean, not necessarily Ahsoka, but Ahsoka's master. He knows how unpredictable they can be, and he needs to control more variables. Which is exactly what he says there. He's like, I can't leave anything up to chance. Really, we have to essentially ensure everything is going to swing our way. I'm not going to take any 50-50 shots in a dogfight.
Yeah, I agree, and it's cool to know because that also informs Ahsoka on how big of an impact Anakin had on her, and that not dangerous in the same way that Anakin is, but still formidable and dangerous to her enemies.
Yeah.
That she is hard to predict because she doesn't follow protocol or
the conventional methods
or behave conventionally necessarily, and that's actually something that the series has pointed to throughout the whole time, where Huyang brings up multiple times, like, that's not the protocol, and she's like, I don't
screw
care.
the protocol.
Yeah, so that was cool, and we get a little bit of an Empire Strikes Back moment where they're sitting there, and Huyang's scanning, looking for Sabine. He can't find her, and then that's when Ahsoka kind of sinks into her seat and tries to connect with her through the Force.
Yeah, and she kind of does. So, I mean, she does. She finds Sabine and is able to locate her. Sabine is kind of feeling something funny, and Ezra kind of immediately turns over and he's like, what did you feel? Because he is obviously very familiar with the Force and how it works and everything. I did think going to Sabine now in that scene, the only thing that bothered me this whole episode really was the fact that Sabine still wouldn't tell him what's up.
I thought that was
what are
coming.
you doing? Like, you've been clearly together for a little bit while now. You've had your happy hellos and reunions and everything. It's time to tell him what the F's going on. I mean, you're on a timeline.
Yeah, I think the reason, so I have a couple, this sort of feeds into theories about next episode, and I will say, if they don't have some sort of conversation addressing it, I'm gonna say that that's an actual flaw, because that feels like he's trying to, like, or the writers are trying to, like, brush past it and not deal with it. But I think that they are, because that's the second time they've called attention to it, and I think if you want to ignore something, you don't talk about it twice.
Yeah.
But yeah, and that frustrated me too, but I think we're supposed to be frustrated with her.
Yeah.
And I think the
It's
reason
working.
she was avoiding talking about it is because I don't think she thinks they're getting back. I think that's why she's avoiding the conversation.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you're probably right.
She has no reason to think that they would
have
Thrawn
any
would
way
allow
to
them
get
to
back.
Yeah, like, so unless they're planning on sneaking on, but I think the reason is because she doesn't want to tell him that this was a one-way trip and he's not going to get home, from her perspective.
Yeah.
And I think that's why, and I think we're going to get to that, hopefully. I do hope that they have a conversation about it. I'll be a little annoyed. That'll be like, I'll dock a point on the show for that, but
yeah.
it won't ruin anything for me, but it'll be a little frustrating.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. Then we, I guess we cut to, like, Baylan and Shin, and that was really one of the most interesting developments of the whole episode, I thought. I mean, I am completely shook right now because Baylan is like, all right, Shin, go get some power or whatever. This is where we part. And I had no inclination that they were going to part journeys in this series.
Yeah, that surprised me too. And I had seen some people say, oh, like, this episode kind of went how I expected it to. And I'm like, really? Like, I wasn't expecting them to part at all.
No, I thought for sure there might be something to break them up, but not him just being like, all right, get out there, champ. And then she looks at him and is like, what? You're not going to help? And he's like, nah, I got other things to do. What?
Yeah, so I think there's a few ways to read that, but I think the correct way to read that, at least from Shin's perspective, she probably feels like he's abandoning her. Like,
Probably.
I wouldn't read that as,
I feel that way for her.
Yeah, I think Baylan believes he's letting her pursue what she wants to pursue because he senses that she is not as invested in this as he is. But
Has
he
told her anything about what he's doing?
Exactly, so she has no reason to be invested.
Yeah, that was so interesting to me. And then he gives her the last parting wisdom of, like, basically just don't rush in. So it was really interesting. And she does go in there. She calls Thrawn, says, hey, we've located Ezra, who sends a squad after them. And then they have this, like, little fight scene. And this was also a really another interesting part to me where Ezra did not want his lightsaber back, which was really interesting. I mean, it's been a long time, been probably a decade since he's wielded one. So I'm curious, like, do you think that he's scared to use it for some reason, or do you think that, like, what do you think the reason is for him not wanting his lightsaber back?
I mean, it could just be because he hasn't used it in so long, or he's really confident in his abilities without one, or
He was pretty good without one.
yeah, he was pretty good without one. And I didn't read to me like The Last Jedi, like Luke tossing it. It sounded like, no, like you keep it, you use it, and I'll do my thing.
Yeah.
It wasn't like
No,
I saw
I
some
didn't get
people
that
were-
vibe from him. I
Yeah.
thought it was more just him thinking he's confident in his skills, and maybe he's rusty with his own skills or something. So
It could be both. I'm honestly not 100% sure why he didn't want it back. I think it's fine that he didn't. I'm hoping that there is more of a reason other than like he just didn't feel like he needed it.
yeah, kind of. I mean, I'd be down for him to get a new lightsaber, even make himself a new one or something. I do hope he does get a lightsaber back, because I've been really looking forward to watching Ezra just kick some ass with a lightsaber.
Yeah, I do hope he gets one back. I'm totally cool with Sabine keeping that one. I mean, at this point, I think she's had it longer than
yeah.
he has.
Yeah.
He ever did. So I'm totally fine with her keeping it. I was surprised. I thought the banter between them was pretty funny.
Yeah. I was actually
something-
laughing out loud at a few of the scenes in this episode. It's like mostly during the fight when Ezra's trying to talk to the little shell people the whole time. Like, go back
The shell
inside.
people were so cute. Oh my god! And
Get
then
outta here.
I did like that they circled around. Ezra was like, "No, we have to go help them."
Yeah, feels very Ezra. I mean, that's
yeah,
exactly
and-
what he would do.
Yeah, it is. And I'm wondering though, because it's also what Ahsoka and Anakin would have done, and circling back around did put them in a more compromising position. But they didn't really have like a clear goal other than just moving. So
Yeah.
like they weren't gonna. So it made sense. I think even from like a don't let your attachments like control you sort of thing, that they would still do that and go help. Then they see Shin riding up, right?
Yep.
That's when I think the fight gets pretty interesting, and eventually they get surrounded, and then I think Ezra has another pretty funny line like take us prisoner.
Like, let's talk. Yeah, take us prisoner. Let's talk. And then Shin's just like, what? No, just kill them. And then Ahsoka obviously rides in on her white horse and then uses Huyang to kind of assist in that. She rolls out. Well, I guess right before that, actually, though, Ahsoka has that fight with Baylan. So
Yes,
which was
And,
really interesting.
and that was cool. And for those like confused as to how she ran into him right away, he was standing, I think, on pretty much the only nearby hill, right near where Sabine and all of them were.
I think that's what she was aiming for.
Well, when she got down there and saw them, but then she saw him on the hill and then flew over, I think.
So
It wasn't like completely random.
no, it wasn't. And then you notice Baylan draws his blade first here in this
He
scene.
does. And they have a really interesting exchange too,
Yeah.
where she almost seems disappointed that he drew his lightsaber. And I guess when he said he couldn't allow her to interfere, he just didn't want Ahsoka to hurt Shin, and then maybe realized through the course of the fight that wasn't going to happen.
Yeah. It was interesting because at one point he's like, you can't beat me. And she's like, I don't really have to. And that just felt so Ahsoka to me. I really love how much more Ahsoka feels like herself now.
Yeah, it's really nice. And I think we're both those people that totally understood where she was coming from with like the reserved stoicism, but it's really cool to see her allowing a little bit of joy back in and not taking everything 100% seriously all
Yeah.
the time. Well, it's a lesson that Anakin imparted on her too, and that sort of humor helps cope with these sort of stressful situations.
Yeah, I think it really does. And it makes her seem, I feel like, more fluent in the Force. Like she's like riding it and just like kind of letting it take her in the fight and then out of the fight just as easily. You know, Huyang comes back, shoots some things and distracts Baylan for a sec, just for enough for her to get the little horse and ride off. And Baylan's like, all right.
Yeah,
Interesting.
and there's a couple of things about that. Well, one, he seemed happy that she wasn't dead.
I thought so too. I was really expecting like a really sly grin to come into his face at one point.
Yeah, he was just like not at all. Like, I'm not disappointed I didn't kill you at all.
Yeah.
He seems to like not particularly want to kill anybody. Like, he'll do it, when he doesn't feel like he has a choice, but he doesn't seem to be his first mode of action. And it kind of recontextualizes a little bit the first scene that we meet them, when he's trying to talk to the Republic officer, and once he realizes that like they're not just going to let him through, that's when he kills them. And that's obviously not right. That's still an evil thing to do. I think he's still
Yeah.
a bad guy, quote unquote, but not in the same way that like Thrawn or Darth Vader or the Emperor are bad people. He does seem to have some
Moral
reverence for
code,
life.
even if
Yeah.
it's a little grayer, blacker than most people would have.
Yeah, he'll do the bad thing, but he's not particularly happy about it, and he seems to try to avoid it to an extent.
Yeah.
Even though his goals are putting him in a position to do bad things. But that's sort of the innate hypocrisy of the gray area and the dark side.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree.
And then sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, yeah, they just ride off, and she goes and saves everybody from the surrounding stormtroopers there, the night troopers.
Yeah, that scene was awesome, where she swoops in. But right before that, Baylan, they kind of have like a quiet moment where Baylan kind of looks back and forth, and at least to me, I was reading that as he was thinking on whether or not to go help Shin or to
Continue
go
on with
pursue
his path.
his goal, and then he eventually chooses to go on his goal. I mean, even though Shin didn't see that, he is abandoning her. I guess there's multiple interpretations of that, but I feel like he's decided that his goal is more important.
Yeah, I think so too. So I mean, it really begs the question: what the hell is his goal?
Yeah, I mean, we know something is calling to him. I think we're all assuming it's like an entity of some kind.
Yeah, I don't think anyone thinks it's a person. I think every legitimate theory I feel like I have is some sort of entity, whether that be one thing or the other.
Yeah, I agree. So he must know something about Peridea. I think he's looking for something specific, and he clearly hasn't shared this information with anybody.
No, not even Shin.
Not even Shin. So I don't know how he would expect Shin to just sort of keep following him when she doesn't know what he wants.
Agreed.
So I'm sure she feels abandoned, and then Ahsoka kicks her ass without her using her lightsaber at all, which is pretty cool.
It is. Same with Ezra. Both of them basically beat her without.
Well, Ezra does get like shoved.
Oh, he does at one point. He's very rusty, I think, in the Force.
Yeah, I think so too. He probably doesn't have a lot of experience fighting Force users.
I was expecting like a season 4 Kanan, where it's like, in the meantime, it's like, yeah, he's been meditating a lot. So I was kind of expecting a similar situation with Ezra, who just has been meditating for the last 10 years, essentially. And I mean, really, his skills with the Force are pretty incredible. I mean, you see when Shin throws her lightsaber at him, every time he uses the Force to just push it away.
Yeah, that was really cool. I love those scenes. I think they're always really cool. It was even cool in Rise of Skywalker. It was cool in the Kenobi show, and it was cool here.
Yeah. It's definitely,
it's just always cool.
It's always fun. But then Ahsoka, after they've beaten him, puts her hand out to Shin and is like, come with me, I can help you. And obviously Shin is really confused for a sec, doesn't know what to do, and then eventually runs away. But to me, I think that's alluding to Shin eventually taking that hand for Ahsoka and coming back towards the light, at least in some form.
I think that's definitely where it's going. I don't think that scene was there for no reason. I mean, it could be there to show that she doubles down on her path, but I think it's to show us that she's going to come to the light. We still don't know that much about her, but I definitely think that's where it's going. And I thought it was cool to see Ahsoka offer that and then prevent Sabine and Ezra from chasing her. But she honestly looks scared and confused.
She did. She didn't look angry, and I think part of that stems from the fact that Baylan wasn't with her anymore, and she feels even more alone, and that really backs her into a corner even further.
Well, Thrawn abandoned her too when he called the troops. I mean, she didn't get that call, only the troops did.
Yeah, that's
true. And they just started running away, and she didn't really know what was going on, so...
And Baylan bailed out, which really screwed up Thrawn's plans too, because Baylan thought that they might have succeeded to actually win that battle had Baylan stepped in, and that's a very real possibility that they would have.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think... Thrawn definitely wasn't anticipating Baylan not being a part of that fight. Yeah. Especially since they're being paid to be there, so...
Yeah, but clearly Baylan doesn't care about money anymore. He's got bigger, better plans.
It also shows how unreadable Baylan is even to Thrawn.
Yeah.
because he's been sort of unreadable to the audience too. So it's cool to see that like that's not just for us in a meta sense, that's also to the other characters. So
Yeah.
that's really cool.
And then it just cuts back to Thrawn, who's like, well, they've lost a bunch of time, which is really the only thing they had going for them. And now the time is on their side. He's going to keep that way, which to me makes it seem like he's just essentially trying to stall them long enough to just blast away and never look back.
Yeah, he wants to leave. So you can see him spinning it in like a cope sense, but I really do think it's like, well, we learned more information, and what we really want is to get out of here anyway. Obviously, it would have been better if we, had gotten rid of them entirely, but they said they were like 70 or 90% done loading, so they're about ready to go.
Yeah, they're almost ready to take off for sure. So it seems like they're just really trying to get out of there and then trying to prevent any of the force wielders to get on that ship, because he's completely over the force wielders at this point.
Yeah. So I sort of feel like this episode did move a lot of pieces into place, but it didn't introduce any like really new plot aside from Baylan and Shin splitting up. So
which I think is a huge plot point still, though. I mean,
yeah, I think that's going to be a plot point too, and I am curious. I do hope next week's episode is long, because something with I didn't like about Mandalorian season 3 is I felt like the individual episodes were fun to watch, but I didn't feel like it did a good job of building up to the climax, and the climax itself felt sort of like rushed.
Agree. It did.
I don't think that's going to be the case here, but they do have a few things I think they need to cover.
Yeah.
So if you want to get into like theories and stuff, unless there's anything
let's get into theories and everything now.
Well, sort of expectations and theories. One, I think Sabine has to have that conversation with Ezra and Ahsoka about sort of what she's been doing, and then also the not providing that information, because at the end of the episode, Ezra's like, "Wait, you thought she was dead?"
Yeah.
And she was like, "Yeah,"
and brushes it off again though.
Yeah, it's like she's not dealing with any of her feelings, really. Yeah. I hope that's something that they address next episode. Otherwise, it's going to be sort of frustrating. I can sort of see them like wanting to have a conversation about it, and then Ahsoka being like, "Well, we don't really have time for this right now," which I could see, and I could live with that as long as they actually have the conversation at some point.
Yeah.
I do think that needs to happen, because otherwise it makes Sabine feel sort of ridiculous, and not a good way. If they don't like deal with the fact that she's acting like that. Like, I need the story to acknowledge that her behavior right now is not like normal.
Yeah. Agreed. That's not how a normal person would act. It's not even how Sabine normally acts, so it feels a little bit out of character as well.
Right. And Ezra even says he seems surprised that she didn't mention that. So I do think that they're going to talk about it.
Yeah. So what do we think's happening? I mean, season finale next week. So obviously it's going to be a cliffhanger, and they're not defeating Thrawn or anything in the next episode, but like, what are we going to cover here? I can't imagine us not at least somewhat finding out what Baylan is after, at least in a small sense.
Yeah, I don't think we'll get full explanation, but I do think they need to give us a big hint, because they've been building it up the whole time, like a little bit, and we've not
almost
really
every episode that he's
and it's like so little information. It feels like we're getting like 1%, and I really feel like they're building to something. And it's going to be a little frustrating if we get to the end and Baylan's barely there, or like we don't learn anything else.
Yeah.
I don't expect that to be the focal point, but I do think we need to see it, even if it's like the last scene or like an after credit scene. Like, I feel like we need that information.
Yeah, I think it's very vital. And I feel like it might be, in my opinion, or in my theory, I should say, I think Thrawn's getting away. Like, I think he's getting away, and he's going to blast off, and then that's going to leave our heroes to have to get back a different way, which I feel like will somehow collide with what Baylan's after.
So do you think that Thrawn and company are going to be fighting Ahsoka and them the whole time?
Next episode?
Or do you think that's going to be part of the episode? He escapes.
Yeah.
And then the rest of the episode is something else. So like we still end on like the cliffhanger of Thrawn leaving for the galaxy, but then the heroes have to go deal with whatever Baylan's doing.
I don't see. I kind of feel like, I feel like it'll be mostly them fighting in some way, shape, or form to maybe try to get back on the ship or something to find a way home. Thrawn's going to end up winning that encounter, or just skating by, and he's going to blast off. He's going to leave our heroes stranded. they might like link up with Shin in some way, and then Shin maybe direct them to where Baylan's going in some way, shape, or form. I think Shin's gonna need a lot more character development before she takes Ahsoka's hand, though. So I don't really see her helping Ahsoka out next episode, especially after running away this one. So I think it's gonna take a lot more. So I think most of the episode's gonna be them fighting and then getting stranded on that planet, and then kind of the cliffhanger will be whatever. It's so hard to say. What do you think?
Yeah, I so there's like what I want. I could see them just having a fight the whole episode, sort of like the Mando season 3 finale. I do hope that's not what it is, and I say that because that's sort of expected. Like, I expect them to have some sort of confrontation. The thing that I'm sort of curious about is that they don't really have a means of fighting the Chimera or even the ring ship thing.
Correct.
So unless they're having like some sort of ground combat, I'm
confused
like,
at
I don't
like how they would
know.
even start a fight like that.
Yeah.
I mean, the Chimera, presumably the Chimera has probably very little weaponry left, I would think.
Yeah, but like I don't think that Ahsoka's ship would be able to do anything to it. So like if they started to leave and they're in the Chimera, I feel like they would just leave, right?
Well,
Like,
I would assume that Ahsoka would try to get aboard the Chimera somehow.
that makes sense. I could see that. I mean, they have the ship now, so they can get back quickly. But Thrawn knows Ahsoka's there, so they're going to be planning for that in some way.
Yeah, and there's still enough night troopers there to really put up a pretty solid resistance.
Yeah, and you know the heroes don't really know what Thrawn is doing, so
correct. I don't know what anybody's doing.
My crazy prediction, based on nothing, is that the fight with Thrawn and the heroes only going to be part of the episode. Now, I do think that I hope that they deal with some of the Baylan stuff. That's not going to get resolved because we haven't learned enough about either of them to say it's resolved. They're both intriguing and they've been good antagonists, but we don't know a lot. Like, I would say we know as much about Baylan right now as we did by the end of Empire Strikes Back with Darth Vader. Like, we knew he had some sort of history. We know, like, sort of who he is.
Yeah.
But we were missing a lot of context. Same with Shin, even less than that. So I'm thinking, I don't know.
It's so hard to say,
like,
because it feels like the plot is kind of going in two directions right now, right? Like, on one side, you have Thrawn, and they're trying to get back to the Empire, or not the Empire, but the galaxy to maybe reconsolidate some Empire power over there, and that has to be stopped. But on the other hand, just a completely different direction. You have Baylan, who's going to try to find some sort of entity or power that he can start to wield, and it feels like he kind of has to be stopped too, because he wants to, as he says, end it all, the whole cycle. And whatever that is, it can't be a small scale thing. That sounds like a pretty large scale threat as well. But it feels like those plot lines are going in such opposite directions. You can only tackle one of them, especially in one episode to come.
Yeah, I don't think either of those things will be resolved next episode.
No, I don't think so either. But even just pursuing one of them, like, how do you do that?
So Ahsoka might not make it back. Like, I could see her staying to go deal with whatever Baylan, because there is a line in the trailer, and this could just be cut, where Ahsoka says, "I sense something dark is coming." I don't believe she said that in the show yet. So unless that's a cut line, that could have something to do with whatever Baylan is doing, or maybe Baylan like straight up unleashes something, and we see it, or you know. But she does say, "I sense," so that tells me she feels it, not sees it. So I hope that we at least get a big enough hint that we can, you know, healthily speculate, not be in the complete dark.
Yeah, because who knows when we're gonna get a follow up with the story.
Yeah, I mean, that could be years. It could be the movie. It could be a potential season 2. Like, we really don't know.
Yeah, and I think that's what makes the speculation so open ended, because it's like, well, what's gonna happen? Like, are we getting another season of this, or is it gonna be a movie? It's gonna be a one and done. Like, that I think in itself breeds more speculation, just because we don't even know how long of a story they have left to tell. We could be at the beginning, the middle, or the end. Who knows?
No, it feels like we're part one of a much bigger narrative.
Yeah, that's what I would assume too.
Which is okay. I think we got that. Like, the fact that we didn't get to Thrawn until episode 5 told us pretty clearly that, like, we're early days.
Yeah.
Well, we also know that Ahsoka and Morgan fight well, it has to be next episode because the actress said that they fought. So
Yeah,
that happens, and that's definitely has to be a ground fight of some kind. So that does make me curious. I honestly like. I think maybe that's part of the reason this episode mixed reception ish is because
it feels like there's so much to do in the last episode now.
it feels like there's a lot to do, but it also feels like it didn't give us really anything to go off of other than some sort of confrontation with Thrawn is happening.
Yeah,
But like we're lacking so many details because Thrawn himself says they're really far away, and that's like a good thing. So that makes me feel like it's gonna be more complicated than that. I suspect some sort of twist because if it is just they fight the whole episode, Thrawn escapes, like we kind of knew that was gonna happen. So I would think I'd be a little disappointed in that
yeah.
narratively. Like I'm sure I would still enjoy the episode, but I hope that it's not that simple. I hope there's a little bit more to it. I don't want a twist for a twist's sake,
I,
but
I
I think you know what I mean.
I think that would be fine as long as we get some Baylan stuff too and figure a little bit more of that out.
Yeah, and there is that one shot left of Thrawn getting on the ring itself,
Yeah,
like walking towards the front of it. I could
yeah.
see that literally being the closing shot of the show. I hope that
I
it's not, but
I feel like it might be. That seems like a very end of the line scene. It's either the beginning of the line or the end of the line, and we've already passed the beginning. So I think there's only one other option here.
yeah. So it's really hard to say because this episode left it so open-ended.
Yeah,
Like we only really moved the plot needle a little bit. It was mostly action and reuniting the heroes, and then also Baylan and Shin splitting, and
yeah,
getting to see a little bit more of Thrawn be really tactical and smart. But I think people are assuming that it's going to be like the main of season 3 finale, where it was all action and resolution.
yeah. It's
We basically
definitely not
didn't
getting
get any more
resolved.
plot in the finale. I think
Correct.
other than the clones maybe, but of Gideon. But
Yeah, a little bit
I
of
think that's where
Bo-Katan taking over, right? She's head helming the mantle again, I think.
yeah, but that's like the end, right? So
Yeah,
like I feel like that's where the concern is stemming from, especially since it's the same director doing the finale, that we're not going to get much more plot. I don't think that's true because don't really think it's really been the case for any of Filoni's
no, and
finales.
Filoni wrote this, so I'm
Yeah,
pretty confident
uh,
that even the director will
I feel
be
like we pretty
influenced.
consistently get satisfying endings with him. Like I'm thinking back to like the well, like
Clone
Siege of
Wars
Mandalore
season
was
7
incredible.
or Siege of Mandalore or Rebels even.
Yeah, even the ending to each season, they wrapped something up and then introduced the new thing,
Yeah,
in a satisfying way. But like he's introduced two things here. I don't think either of them are getting wrapped up, so that's why I feel like we have to get some twist that we're not expecting to like make the plot kind of complicate it further.
yeah,
So my final predictions: Ezra did say something about I have a feeling I'm going home. That feels like a narrative Chekhov's gun. So I think either he's not going back. I think that's probably not the case because they've spent the whole season finding him.
yeah,
And that would really like I think that'd be a little unsatisfying, but they can make that work. Like I'm not married to that idea. Or Ahsoka staying behind to go deal with Baylan, and then the other people get on the Chimera or whatever, or sneak on or something, and they go and leave. Or they take Ahsoka ship and they do the frequency zero thing, whatever they did in the Rebel season finale to get the whales to come back, and then they go that way. I
yeah.
don't think they're going to use the whales again though.
I don't think so
So
either. They've used the whales so many times already. What are the chances they use it another time?
yeah, and like they could, like there would be some like logical sense to it, but I don't feel like that's narratively very interesting. So
Or very satisfying if they just can use
yeah,
the whales to get everywhere.
exactly. So I don't think it's going to be that. I don't think it'll be that simple. So I hope that the episode's long, and I hope there's more plot, and it's not just action.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. But I
So
don't think I
we shall
have
see.
anything else on this episode or speculation wise. What about you? Anything else?
No, it's all like I'm more just sitting here like, what is even gonna happen next
Yeah, there are
episode?
so many possibilities. It's like almost hard to speculate because you're like, well,
Yeah,
yeah, anything can happen. Like, you can say any different theory you have, and I'd be like, yeah, it's probably possible.
yeah. I think it's gonna go one of two ways. It's either gonna be straightforward. It's just gonna be a battle, and then Thrawn's gonna escape, and that's gonna be the end. Or it's gonna be more complicated than that in some way. Either with the structure of it, like Thrawn escapes partway through the episode, or more curveballs of some kind are introduced.
Yeah,
Uh,
I'm banking on curveballs, knowing Filoni.
yeah, I think so too. And I'm curious what Thrawn thinks he's gonna do with the Imperial Remnant. So I assume he still wants to build up an army to go help the Chiss. So he's starting from a position of weakness now. So I'm
Yeah.
interested to see if he's just going back guns blazing. So I guess hopefully we'll find out some of these things.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be a little bit less straightforward
I
than
think
that.
so too. All right, I think that's going to wrap it up for this talk about Ahsoka Season 7. So let us know down in the comments, what did you think about this episode? And do you have any really interesting theories that you are interested to see come to fruition in the season finale next week of Episode 8 of Ahsoka? I'm Keegs, and I will catch you all next time for some more Star Wars content.